start it off with a quote since I'm here.
Okay, we'll start it off with a quote since you're here, John.
Never be limited by other people's limited imaginations.
Ah, there you go. This is actually used to be my least favorite workshop to do every year, but it is very, very necessary because if we're not prospecting, if we're not selling, then nothing ever happens. And part of the reason that I got so into marketing is because of my limited imagination. Thank you, John, for that quote. Um, you know, I grew up with a family that, thought that salespeople were somehow not, it was just a salesperson, so it's okay to hang up on them. I mean, it's just, those kinds of things where sales is not really considered a respectable profession. But, since then, I've gotten to know a lot of salespeople, and I've gotten to the point where I know that capitalism depends on sales. You can make the best mousetrap on the planet, and just because you do that, that doesn't mean that you're going to get any customers. That doesn't mean you're going to be able to stay in business. That doesn't mean you're going to be able to make payroll. That doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do any of the things that business does, right?
Yeah, the old saying, "And build a better mousetrap and the world will be the path to your door," is not true.
Well, that was back when there were no mousetraps. And now the
I'm
world,
just saying.
yeah, is full of competition. So, it's a very different world. But if you would not mind, while we are giving people just another couple of minutes to ding in if they're going to, um, which of the following do you find the most frustrating? And, this is for your own business. I know some of you guys own your own businesses. Um, if you're working with us, what's the hardest part of the prospecting process? Number one, targeting the right prospects. Number two, finding an angle or an alignment with that person. Which of our products are they most likely to like or be interested in? That kind of angle or alignment is kind of hard to find for some of us. And then number three, making the initial contact. I will tell you, for me, number three is the hardest, and for exactly the reasons that we talked about. I feel the inclination to pull my punches, just like, oh, well, they won't be interested in what I have to say. But as it turns out, I am denying them the opportunity to find out about our product or our company, right?
Well, you have to let them self-select either direction. You don't
Mhm.
do it.
Oh, I agree.
You'll
That's
inevitably be wrong.
right. That's true.
So for me, I think so. When I started contacting through LinkedIn, I will also go with the making initial contact. I used
Right.
to send the message that who am I and what I am and why I'm contacting you. And if there is a no response from anyone's side, I feel really very embarrassed that no one they connected with me. They accept my network connection request, but they do not started the conversation until unless I send my first message. Okay, I am Mohammed Ali. I am from ABCI or I am providing some sort of services, and this is my role and etc. But some may contact me within few minutes, but couple of them never responded me.
Right.
So I totally agree with you. For from my point of view, making initial contact is very hard.
Yes. It's very hard on your ego, and when we make it and initiate a conversation and they don't respond. But a lot of people have that same feeling that my dad did. He felt like it is not necessary to be polite to salespeople. They're somehow excluded from the rules of society, which is strange but true. There are people like that, and we just have to get over ourselves and realize that that's about the function. That's not about us as a person. And we're going to also talk about initial contacts during this workshop, so we'll make it easier. But
Well, I remember
yeah.
when I went to buy a vehicle once,
Mm.
this guy, I just went in for a brochure and he says, "You interested in buying one?" I said, "Well, yeah, but not from you." And he said, "Why not?" And I said, because you will not sell it to me for a price I'm willing to pay. And he looked at me and said, I will sell it to you for any price you can show me that's valid. I said, if that's true, you just sold a vehicle. I'll be back.
Cool.
What he didn't know was that my dad had fleet discount on this particular vehicle.
Oh no.
So I had my dad configure it out the way I wanted it with all the options and what they cost and put it all in. And I gave him a price. I said, you meet that and I'll buy it. And a day later, he called me back. He said, there's only one of them I can't meet. And I said, what's that one? And he said, it told me this. And he said, it's actually going to cost this, even a fleet discount. I said, I'll trust you.
Mhm.
And then I bought it.
Right. But you actually had a conversation and
Yeah,
treated him
I
like a
mean,
human.
I saved almost $8,000 on the vehicle, but most people can't do that. But
Yeah.
it's just interesting that, I mean, I really wasn't going to buy it there. I was going to buy it to my dad. And
Right.
that guy was funny.
Right.
But I bought it.
Well, good for you. Well, I ran a very scientific poll on LinkedIn asking this very question. And it looks like, a lot of people struggle with targeting the right prospects. Um, and John and I just did a workshop that has basically using ChatGPT, data from a CRM, data from the FAA, and other things, using those together in order to target the right prospects. So, we will talk about that today as well. I know that is a big problem for a lot of people. Finding an angle or alignment was not as big of a problem, so we'll spend a little bit less time talking about that today. And the most common problem was the one that Ali and I mentioned, which is making that initial contact. So we're all a bunch of chickens.
Well, except that, and I
Yeah.
will say this,
Okay.
initial contact is easy
Okay.
if if
Hmm.
if you've done marketing correctly.
Right. If you've
Because
done your
if you've
research.
done it correctly, they're going to contact you. And once they've done that, no matter whether it's email, the website, I mean, because you can tell if they've been on the website,
Hmm.
then you make the call and said, understand you've been looking at this, blah, 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 blah. It's easy. You get because they've already been looking at what you got to offer.
Hmm.
But
So,
then that's it easy. It's not like cold call.
hmm.
Cold calls, I've done that. Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Exactly. And sometimes you're in a situation where you have to do that. I mean, if it's a time sensitive situation and everything else, there are situations where that has to happen, and there are ways to make that easier. But for the most part, you can do some homework and make that easy. So today, um, this is the agenda. We're going to talk about prospecting goals, and you can tell up here in the title, 90 days to a full pipeline for high ticket, complex, or B2B prospects. So our goal is a full pipeline in 90 days. And every client who has ever followed this process has had as full of a pipeline as they wanted within 90 days, if they actually did all of this. The problem is this is work, right? There is no easy way to do this. And I don't think there should be an easy way to do this. A lot of people try to speed this up. A lot of people try to shortcut this. And honestly, that's why salespeople get a terrible reputation is
And
because.
on top of that,
Mhm.
a lot of people who should be doing this say, well, I can't handle that number of prospects coming in at this blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
Well, that is a bullshit response because it is
Mhm.
because you can stack them up
Mhm. Yep, and we'll talk about that
and
too.
you should have a backlog of people waiting to buy your product
Wouldn't that be nice? Right.
and you can do it.
Hmm.
Do it all the time. You do it.
Oh, I know. When I have time to sell. And that's really that's the caveat to all of this, is that it does take time, and it does take energy, and it's not easy. So, and I don't think it should be easy, and I don't think that it should be, something that just anybody can do because I think one of the things that keeps business honest is that we have to earn people's business, and I think that is the way it should be. So, all right. Any questions about the agenda, or should we carry on?
Before we do, I just
Okay.
want to reiterate an old standby line that is even today. And if you take 100% of the people who may or may not be interested in your product, 20% of them will never buy. 20% of them don't need to be sold. They're ready to buy right now. Your job is the other 60%.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I totally agree with that. And the better you do your targeting, the better those numbers are, but that's a really good general rule. All right. So first, prospecting goals. I think one of the problems that people have with prospecting is that they try to do too much. They try to bite off too much with the first bite, or they try to accomplish too much on the first contact. So the saying, and I think this is from Bill Caskey, is you don't have to sell the whole chain, only the first link. So, most of us are selling high ticket, consulting, we're selling airplanes, we're selling fleets of airplanes, we're selling, very large things. And we are not going to do that in one contact or anything else. So the first thing we need to do is just make a friend, make a contact, let them know what we do, find out what they do, and so on. So the goal of the prospecting process is not to make a sale. It is to find a person that has the money, authority, and need to be a customer eventually. It is to start a relationship that everybody feels good about. And it is to invite them to take the next step in the process. And every single interaction or every single prospecting interaction is going to result in one of three options. Yes, let's do a conversation, or let's do a consultation. Or yes, I'd like to talk to you about this further. Um, no, I am not interested, which is a perfectly fine answer. Or I'm not the right person to handle that at my company. Here is the right person to handle that. So yes is a perfectly legitimate and great answer. No is a perfectly legitimate and great answer. And the no response is also a perfectly fine and great answer. What that means is that you need to contact them a different way. If you've contacted them a couple of different ways and still get no response, then you have a no, and that's a perfectly fine answer. So we can't take these things personally. It just means, they're not into it right now.
The whole
And
holding pattern is very valid
mhm,
because
right.
I can tell you, because I did this myself for Paula. We
Hmm.
we had a gentleman call us back after 8 years of
Hmm.
holding pattern. 8 years. I mean, his name was just in there, and we were just doing it. But 8 years, come on.
Yeah,
Got
that's
him on the phone. I was talking to him. He says, "Okay, so how do I make this happen?" I said, "You give me your credit card number," and he did.
right. Exactly right. And we're not going to talk about the holding pattern actually today. We're just talking about the first two steps, prospecting and approaching. There's plenty to talk about with just that. And good morning, Jean. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Mm. Yeah, so most of the time when people fail at prospecting, it is because they're trying to bite off too much, or because they're not doing it, or because they're targeting the wrong people. So we're going to talk about all of those things today. But the objective, if you do all of this, is a full pipeline of qualified prospects. Make sense?
Yes.
All right, cool. So here we go. What we don't want is to drive people crazy with cookie cutter AI, with cut and pasted messages that are obviously cut and pasted messages. We don't want to be broadcasting, it's a very limited audience that we have. So, we want to cast a very narrow net. We don't want to be fishing the whole ocean. We want to be very, very specific about what we do. And we don't want to overwhelm people with too much communication at the beginning. So, this is what gives salespeople a bad name, right? Is the cookie cutter responses, the overwhelming, calling day after day, the same, asking the same question, etc. Um, Talking about themselves too much, talking about their products too soon, and all of those things. So that is what we don't want. Any thoughts or questions about that? Anybody have a terrible experience with a salesperson that usually comes from one of those kinds of things?
Every day.
Mm.
It seems like every day we get a phone call where somebody wants to quote buy the house, and yet they have no idea what my house looks like. And I always question them. I always do.
Mm-hmm.
So do
Is
I.
Yeah, they don't do their homework.
Right.
If you're going to make calls, do your homework. I don't
Exactly.
call somebody on a Challenger 300 if I don't know the serial number, the registration number, and something about the airplane. And unlike researchers that'll make a phone call, I'm calling about your airplane. My
Mm-hmm.
first response is, "Oh, which one?"
Mm-hmm.
and and I do the same thing with houses. We have some rental houses, and people call about our house, and I go, "Which one?" And then they have the audacity to ask, "How many do you have?"
Oh,
And yeah, then we're done.
yeah. If you don't
It's
know, by the
yeah,
time you
end of
get on the
phone
phone
call.
with me, yeah.
Yeah. So the big message is be prepared. If it's
Mm-hmm.
in writing or if it's verbal, be
Mm-hmm.
prepared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that comes from good targeting, good research, and also from not trying to do too much. We recommend top 10. Doing a
Yep.
top 10. These are our top 10 most wanted clients. We'll get to that in just a second. But okay, so identifying prospects to start with. And hopefully, if you have downloaded the workbook, you can write this down for yourself. Who do you want as a customer? What is the company type? What's the company size? What's the geographic location? Maybe you only sell within the United States or within a couple hundred miles of where you are, so that you can provide that in-person experience. Um, what make and model of aircraft do they have or sell or want or service or whatever, depending on what kind of business you have. What is their financial situation? What are other factors? So that's about the company. And then about the person, you should know at a minimum, what is their title? What are their needs and priorities? And some of this you can guess from their title. Some of this you can find out from news, you can find out from, other information. What is their personality? If they post on LinkedIn, you can get a lot of data about this and you can actually do some pretty good profiling, just like the CIA, about people's personality. What is their motivation level? And you may not know their motivation level until the first conversation, but that's something that you can find out as much as you can beforehand. And other factors that may be unique to your business, whatever it is. So if you start with this is what we call a ideal customer profile or an ICP in marketing parlance, right? Um, any questions about this? Does everybody have a pretty good idea of who they're selling to?
From South Asia perspective, I've been targeting so many people,
Mhm.
but I'm still, you can say, I can say, search of that. Who is the ideal person who I'm targeting to? Because there is a multiple role variation in the South Asia. People's or the titles are wearing two, three heads on their, you can say, head. So
Yeah.
sometimes and a commercial manager is authority to handle the website. Sometimes an engineering or MRO person have the authority to manage the marketing side. So
Hmm.
sometime I think so it's based on the you can say the need and the person who we are talking to, and maybe sometime the person I'm talking to, maybe he's not my the right prospector. Maybe he can refer to me someone else, an
Yeah.
other company, or in his own company that I'm not the suitable person to talk to. The services side, you may contact to this person. What I'm experiencing since last 2 months is that I'm still in between the confusion that is this a right person I'm you can say targeting, and is this person have the full authority or the need what I'm you can say providing or making an initial contact with them. So I
Right,
totally understand the initial identifying level, but about the person is really very hard for me to understand right now.
right. And I think outside of the US especially, it's much harder to identify some of these things. In the US, we're really transparent. We'll tell everybody everything. But in a lot of companies, they do shelter their VIPs a lot more than they do here. So, that does get a lot more difficult in some places, and that's something we'll have to work through. Um, but that's part of the reason that, we recommend doing a top 10 because 10 is a small enough number to kind of target, and if you have maybe more than one product, let's say, if you're selling 3 or 4 different kinds of airplanes at the moment, your ideal customer, or if you're seeking listings, maybe you're seeking listings for 2 different aircraft types, maybe helicopters and something else. Um, Heaven forbid. But you may have some differences in your prospect list that you need to accommodate. So you can have a top 10 that you're working on right now, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's all you're working on, but that's a small enough number to focus, to tailor, to um, really get to know those people and to do some research. And the difference is, big companies or people who are full-time salespeople will go through a top 10 in a week. I tend to go through a top 10 in a couple of months because I don't spend that much time selling. I spend a couple of hours a week, to be honest, doing sales. So how fast you turn over your top 10 is a different story, but I think 10 is a maximum number that I can really get to know and understand and customize and, all of those things effectively.
So you'd be willing to go out on a limb,
Okay.
and business school says span of control is 7
Mm.
max, and you're saying the top 10 list will be 10. So 10 is the max you should be shooting for.
I don't have to control these people. I just have to get to know them, right? So I would never have more than 7 direct reports. I get that the
No,
business
no, no,
school
no,
thing.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
I'm not correlating.
Okay.
Saying as an example, they
Yeah.
say that you're saying this for marketing.
Hmm.
All right.
I think 10 is a good number, and you may find your results may vary. And you can keep track of 20 or 30 or 40 people and get to know them really well. That may be something that you can do depending on the amount of time that you're willing to invest. But I think a top 10 is the most effective way of doing this with me and with anybody else that we have done a lot of coaching with for sales. Because, like I said, you can turn over this 10 as soon as you get a yes or a no or a not yet. That person goes in your holding pattern, or that person drops off your list and you replace them with somebody else, or they say yes and they become a customer and you replace them on your prospect list. Does that make sense? All right.
No,
No.
for me, I know.
Go ahead.
Because for me, what I understand that right now I have 30 people, let's say, in my list.
Mm,
Uh, in my initial contact, some from one of them, I expected that they will not respond me back,
right.
but they respond me back,
Okay.
and I have initial contact, but I was not expecting that they will respond me back. But I'm
Gotcha.
still yes. So how gonna I differentiate those criteria, or you can say make a 10 top list? Because I was not expecting a response from Paula's side, but I was expecting a response from John's side. Now
Hmm.
I'm confused that how to move forward.
You dropped Paula off the list, but John's still on the list. So when I
Exactly.
respond back to you, you put me back on the list, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe you have 11 on your list. That's okay. But
So my approach will be different for both of them if I'm getting a response from Paula and not getting a response from John's side. So I
right.
will be having a different conversation with both of them.
Yes, so you'll be having conversations, you'll be checking these like, every day or every a couple of days for responses from these people, and you'll be responding to them. If John doesn't respond to you by a LinkedIn message, let's say, and then you
Mhm.
send him an email and he still doesn't respond, and then maybe you pick up the phone and call him if you're being super diligent and he doesn't respond to any of those three, you drop him off the list. Make sense?
Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Replace them with somebody who is responding or with the next person, or someone else that you research and add them to the list.
And what should be my evaluation criteria, that he should be only replying me, or he should be visiting my website, visiting my profile, visiting my blogs, visiting
Mhm.
my commenting on my post, or you can say some sort of other inquiries. So do we have any criteria to evaluate the response level
I
to
do
move
not
forward?
have, yeah, that specifically. So, let's say you have a MailChimp list of 100, and of those, maybe 30 people are clicking on your website. So those 30 people can't be in your top 10. So, you may need to take the take the ones that you know the most about, or the ones that have responded to the most of your emails. And then like MailChimp or in any CRM, they usually have a rating system. Um, so you can take the top 10 from your CRM as a first cut. But there's always a human element to that, and say, well, this person visits our website every single day, but I know they're not a qualified person. They're an admin for someone else or whatever. So I'm not going to put them on our top 10 list. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally makes sense. But there is
Okay.
a follow-up question.
Okay.
Uh, sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
of course there is. That's great. That's what we're here for.
Uh, if he respond me back and initially he make a contact,
Hmm.
now what should be my next step? Directly asking the question that, are you willing to buy my services or our services, or
Right.
something like that, or you can say, missing a step here to, you can say, move forward to
That's
another step. Just
right. We haven't got there yet, but we will. So I promise we will talk about step one, step two, step three, and so on. So right now we're just talking about selecting the list or targeting, right? Um, okay. So sources of prospects. There are many, and we're working on more. And ChatGPT, I am loving right now because, and we just did a workshop. John and I just did a podcast episode that we have a recording of that you're welcome to look at, where we took data from MailChimp and we took data from the FAA and we put it together into a conversation in um, ChatGPT and had it scrub the data. So, there's a lot of ways of doing this that don't require a ton of money, that don't require a ton of time. It's gotten so much easier than it used to be to find a really good list of prospects. Does everybody have, and on your workbook, you can circle any three, that are your favorites for the purpose of today's work exercise. Um, does everybody have at least three sources of prospects? If not, we need to talk, and it might go beyond today's conversation, but
It occurs to me
yeah.
that somebody, and it's even more important today, somebody once said the most important thing you got
Hmm.
is your house list.
Hmm.
And with the advent of ChatGPT, holy cow, is that ever true?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
can, you can let it do all the work, or at least 90% of the work, as long as you double check it. But
Hmm. Cool. So everybody has at least three sources of leads. Prospect.
yes. And if we move, if you are quoting about the podcast you and John had recorded, I watched that postcard very thoroughly. And the case study you done for LinkedIn, you can say client or example. But is there a way to, you can say, make it for a bunch of 10 people, or we can only target one people and get the data from the LinkedIn and put into the chat GPT and get the ideas?
Yeah.
But uh, is there a way to make it happen for 10 people within the company, that who is actually my, you can say, right perspective for the upcoming sale, or for the other, you can say, LinkedIn profile, or maybe the client profile, what we are targeting to. So you only quoted the one person example in the podcast. What I'm trying to ask here, that we can compile it within the 10 profiles, or within the company or outside the company.
Yeah.
If we have some social media accounts and some CRM channels, etc.?
Yeah, we will talk about that. You can uh, export your entire LinkedIn data as an archive, upload it into ChatGPT, and ask it for your top 10 most active LinkedIn discussion partners or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be your best prospects, right? So you can.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. I had a question relevant to our previous topic. Most of them right now, if I'm targeting someone through LinkedIn,
Mhm.
if I'm able to make a connection, but they were, you can say, active 6 months ago on the LinkedIn, they are only accepting the network request. They are only connecting with me, but not beyond that.
Okay.
But they have posted something about themselves, about their company is so long, since 3 months, 6 months, and they have been not active out there. So this is my follow-up question. So how gonna we pursue this on the
Right.
next level?
Yeah, you need to scrub that data. LinkedIn can't be your only source. You have to have at least three, right? So if they're stale on LinkedIn, you move on to something else. See if you can find them active on a different platform. See if you can find other information about them on the company website or some other way. Try contacting them via email. Other things like that. So find out if you have any mutual contacts and so on. But I think we're probably going to figure that out. If you're still not happy with the answer by the end of this workshop, we'll talk about that again. But we're let's get into the process of what to do with these folks once you have your top 10 list, and how to basically process them through your prospecting process and figure out if they really are qualified, figure out what else you can find out about them, further the sale, etc. So let's move on to that, and then we'll come back to your question if we haven't answered it by then. Sound fair?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All
Thank
right,
you.
so no problem. Okay, so now that you've got your top 10 list, or at least, and it may be imperfect, and it will be imperfect, especially if you are selling in a new market, like Ali is selling to a new market in Asia that we know very little about. Your list is going to be imperfect to start with. It will get better over time as we build a network, start making friends, start building relationships, and so on. So the next thing we need to do once we have our top 10 list is to get their attention. And you can do, I would say, at least two of these. Two of my favorites are LinkedIn DMs and email because I am a ridiculous introvert when it comes to this sort of thing. Um, couple of the best salespeople that I know are great at the telephone. They can pick up the phone and somehow they get through to people. They're totally comfortable talking to complete strangers and it works for them. So, if that's your style, then absolutely, that is so efficient and so much warmer and more personal than any of the rest of these things.
Jeremy was the best guy I have ever seen with that.
Jeremy Cox, yeah. Oh, yeah. He was a legend. Could talk to anybody about anything. And even if he didn't know them, half an hour later, he's their best friend. So it's the coolest thing. In-person office visits, if you happen to be visiting an airport, one of the things that we did at the Spirit of St. Louis Airport, we had a client introduce us around to everybody at the airport, which was amazing. If you've got somebody that will do that with you or for you or anything else, or if you are brave enough to just do it yourself, just walk in and say, "Hi there, my name is," and I'm just, happen to be in town, thought I would drop in and introduce myself, let you know about what I do.
And we did that in Virginia.
Yeah, postal mail. Um, Postcards are a very traditional method. I know this is one of Jean's favorites, is to send postcards to people who have maybe adjacent aircraft that are frequent updaters to or upgraders from this aircraft to that one. If you have an aircraft for sale and you send it to people who have the one below or the one above that and say, hey, if you're looking to upgrade or downgrade your aircraft, here's one that's on a possibility. Trade shows are also a great way to meet people. If you've got a top 10 list, you make appointments with those folks before you go to the trade show. And we like to do breakfast because people are sober, even in Las Vegas. And, they tend to come to breakfast. Other things, there's a lot of
You're muted,
competition.
Gene.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of, go ahead, Gene, I'm sorry.
And I'm a morning person, so it works out just fine.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of competition for people's attention at trade shows, especially in the afternoons and evenings. So we love to do breakfast or coffee with people in the morning. Um, any other tips or tricks or anything else that anybody has tried or failed or done well, or that you think is particularly good or bad in this category?
Combinations.
Yeah, if one doesn't work, try something else. So
Hey,
go ahead.
we don't know that we sold or bought from the gentleman, but found out he was going to be in Park City, and I'd never seen him before. He'd never seen me before, but we looked each other up on LinkedIn, and I walked up there, and it's just like we knew each other forever.
A blind date.
Yeah, coffee and lunch, and talked about marketing and this, that, and the other thing.
Yep, that's always fun. All right, so you have your top 10 list and you have your two weapons of choice, right? Next thing, this is our 8-step prospecting campaign. So thing number one, of course, you acquire your lead or prospect, so you have your top 10 list. Number two is you research and connect with them in any way you can. My tool of choice for that is LinkedIn. If they're not on LinkedIn, then you'll have to find another way, either email or something else. But you research as much as you can about that person. ChatGPT is great for this. Uh, you know, Google is great for this. There's lots of ways to find out more about that person, find out, if their company's been in the news, if they've been hiring, if they've been firing, if they've been downsizing, those are all different opportunities or different challenges that they may be looking at. So then we have a series of steps. The first one we're calling email number one, but this will work just as well with a LinkedIn DM. So let's say, in this example, our tools of choice, or two of our tools of choice, are email and phone calls, but you can substitute any of them for any of the others. Email number one, phone call with a voicemail. 75 or more % of the time, you're going to get a voicemail, especially if it's a first call from an unknown caller. So you need to be prepared to leave a voicemail. Then some amount of time later, this usually takes, I think the standard compression for this process is about 2 weeks. So we do all 8 steps within about 2 weeks. So I usually do step 3 and step 4 on the same day. Send them an email, make a phone call, leave a voicemail. Hey, I just left you a voice, or I just sent you an email. Wanted to connect, wanted to find out if you're the right person for this, or hey, I liked your post about aardvarks. I thought you had a really interesting take on that topic. So the first contact, and we'll talk about the contents of each of these contacts in just a minute, but first I wanted to talk about the structure. So this is 8 steps. And the result of any of these 8 steps is one of 3 responses: yes, no, or not yet. No response is also a response.
So I noticed that you eliminated postcards from this.
You could use postcards for one of these. We could create a campaign that includes postcards as well. But for
Well,
this example,
I know it's passe, so to speak.
mhm,
However, postcards is why I bought the first airplane.
right. Well, for this example, I wanted to use something that everybody could do very easily without a lot of lead time and without spending any money.
Okay, good point.
So, assuming that you're starting from scratch, you have nothing. You have LinkedIn, you have a phone, almost
Yep, yep,
everybody
yep,
has
yep.
those two things. So I wanted to create an example that anybody could follow.
My apologies for interruption.
No, that's okay. With no excuses, right? And that's exactly the thing. Nobody follows this all the way through. I have yet to have a client that will follow this all the way through, but the further they get in the process, the better their pipeline is by the end of the 90 days. Make sense?
Yeah, but you also get real close to following this.
Yeah.
If you're in the aircraft sales business, this is actually quite common.
Yeah. Thank you, Jean. I know a lot of people, they see this and they go, oh my gosh, that's
And
insane.
and to John's point, I miss
Mhm,
postcards. In my earlier years, I used them a lot.
mhm,
And what I think it was twice in my career, I walked in somebody's office and there's my postcard sitting on their desk.
mhm.
Yeah.
We had that happen with a newsletter back in the day when we did printed newsletters. We walked into somebody's office that we didn't even know, and they had one of our newsletters on their desk. It was the coolest thing. They'd gotten it from someone else, so that was really fun. Okay, so step one, starting the conversation or building rapport. We're using John as the victim of this exercise, right? So what you can do is look at John's LinkedIn profile and find a way to begin a conversation with John. So, hey, I see you went to the 47G event in Salt Lake City. What did you think of it? Or I see you went to the Eccles School of Business. Are they still, is Dr. Bentley still there? Is he still driving people crazy? Or I see you post a lot about security. I'd like to hear your opinion on this. So the first conversation should be about the other person. It should not be about you. It should not be about your product. It should not be about your company. None of that. It should be about the other person, right? Um, so everybody's looking at John's profile. I could pull it up, but I think everybody has more than one device these days. Um, Everybody is able to come up with some icebreaker, right? To initiate a conversation. To Ali's point, this is a lot harder when people are not on LinkedIn. And this is the reason that a lot of people are not on LinkedIn because people use it for sales. But you can do this with any other platform. You can do this with a company website. You can do this with a lot of other things, but LinkedIn is just the easiest. The ChatGPT cheat for this is you download John's profile as a PDF, you upload it into ChatGPT, and say, brainstorm 10 ways to start a conversation with John Williams. And
Don't expect it to work.
I'm sorry?
But don't expect it to work. This is an example.
Exactly. So, those are some ways to start the conversation. This really helps me because this is my worst part of the whole process, is coming up with that initial contact. But this is not supposed to be easy, and this is why we stuck to a top 10. You'll notice a lot of people will use software and they will contact 100 people or 200 people or 500 people. And every one of those contacts is going to be crap, but they're just playing a numbers game. And if you're selling real estate in New York, that's fine. But if you're selling aircraft, you just don't have the luxury of turning people off with a spammy sort of a situation. You have to be super customized and super personal. Questions, problems, disagreement,
You agree with that, Gene?
horrification?
Oh, you've got to have something.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when you start, nothing works better than voice communications at the end of the day, and especially if you're eyeball to eyeball, because you can also pick up on the nuances. But the but at the end of the day, and this list made me think of what John said earlier, and Jeremy Cox could have done this list in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really good at it.
Yep.
No, but you've got to find something that
Yeah.
you have in common, and and when I started with this organization, good gosh, I'm going to
Hmm.
guess it's been 15 years.
Yeah.
I learned that John was also a helicopter pilot for the Army. Well,
Hmm.
that set us off in the wrong direction right away.
Oh
But
yeah. If
but
somebody's
it
been in the
worked.
service, That's an
Yeah.
obvious
Yeah.
connection point, you know. It's
Well, and to your point,
mhm,
you in a conversation you mentioned travels and that kind of stuff, and all of a sudden you find out you're both in Hawaii at the same time.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
yeah, that was amazing to see you and
Without pre-planning.
right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Ali, you have a question.
Yes, if I am from Pakistan and my target market is USA, Canada, or South Asia, so if I don't have a, you can say, availability making a phone call, so how I will, you can say, move forward.
This is all, you know, I'll do 100% of my initial contacts on LinkedIn because I am just, the phone to me is a waste of time because I'm always getting people's voicemail. I'm never able to connect on a first contact. So LinkedIn is always my first. And then you can move on to WhatsApp or you could move on to Zoom or you could move on to whatever's available to you from that point.
And technologically, you could get voice over IP, I think.
Yeah. Anna Marie and Dan, if you guys have any, and Angel and anyone else, I want to make sure that we're holding space for you guys, but I don't want to put you on the spot. So feel free to jump in if you have anything that you'd like to add or ask or anything else. Um, okay, so assuming that you found a way to make the initial contact, the second contact is making some kind of an offer, and that offer has to be super low risk, super low key. So that could be, let's have a cup of coffee, or let's do a consultation, or let me send you a report, or let me, you know, can we give you a quote on this thing? Or, you know, here's an article that I wrote about, you know, with some insights that you might find useful or, you know, can we demo our software to show you how it works with this or that? So the offer should not be a sale, or at least your first offer should not be a sale. Does that make sense? Okay.
100%. I done this exercise last since last 2 months.
Uh-huh.
The thing you quoted, this is the article you may find very useful regarding your marketing tips, etc. So
Right.
this is, you can say, giving me some kind of good feedback and responses as well.
Right. So you're already armed and dangerous if you have some articles that you've written about a topic that they may be interested in. And then you could take that a step further and say, can I uh, maybe do a customized report about your SEO or your situation or the market in your country? Uh, you know, those kinds of things. So start with something generic, then can I send you something customized if you're interested in that? Um, yeah, so an offer, but a super low key, low stress, low risk offer on everyone's part. Cool. So again, you're going to get a yes, no, or not yet, or no answer. You know, either way is fine. If it's a yes, of course, you proceed with your sales process. If it's a no, take them off the list, replace them. If it is a not yet, put them on your holding pattern. And we'll talk about holding patterns in a whole nother workshop, right? Cool. All right. And a full holding pattern is a wonderful, wonderful thing. All right. So if you offer a consultation, and almost all of us do, uh, there has been a lot of dishonesty with consultations, I'm going to say, in the sales process, especially in the software field and in the Bitcoin field and some other things that are making the rest of us look bad. People will offer a free consultation and it turns out to be a thumb screws and everything sales pitch, right? Your consultation cannot be that. It has to be something that's attractive. It has to be something that doesn't turn anybody off, whether or not they're ready to buy yet. Um, so, you know, you have to offer a better and more detailed consultation than anybody else in the industry does, right? So, this is a way to improve your consultation process. Um, and I know Ali, you offer a consultation. I think Jean does. I think Dan does. I think Anna Marie does. Uh, and I don't know if anybody else on the phone is willing or able to jump in and have any thoughts or ideas about the consultations that you offer and how you might make that offer more attractive?
Well, I think the first thing is you need to shoot for becoming friends or at least friendly rather than for
Hmm.
a sale
Yeah,
because you want to acquire at least a friend to start with because then later on, if they become a recipient of your product and buy, then they'll be there forever.
right. And a lot of people that we do pitches to never become clients, but they do become referrers of business for us, which is great. That's just as good or even better sometimes.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, this list is to develop trust, not to
Yeah,
sell something.
Right.
right,
Because as soon as you start trying to sell something, that trust dwindles.
right. And consultations are one of many possible offers. It's just, a very frequent one. And that can be, one of the things I like about consultations is they can be combined with other things. So you can do a customized report at the end of the consultation that you send, or you could do a demo in your consultation or, other things. So all of those things are,
So
yeah.
the consultation, if you go back to the previous slide, uh, was what most you can say common question I've been hearing from the clients that do you have the solution what I'm looking to and how much the return of investment I will be getting into?
Hmm.
These are the two major questions I always found, and why I should invest or you can say make a deal with you. These are the three questions I always get from the clients, either from the direct consultation or indirect way of consultation. They are asking me that do you first identify our problem, give us the solution, and why we should go with you only.
Right. And that is something that there is an art to the consultation that, we would have to spend a lot of time on. But that goes into the whole negotiation of sales. But once you're past the point of making approaches and, all of these things, then you can take as much time as you need to get those questions answered. And in a lot of cases, you're going to need some information from them before you can steer them in the right direction. But what you can do to build trust is say, here's our range of services. To find out what exactly is best for you, we're going to have to talk. And, we'll have a questionnaire, we'll do a consultation, we'll do all of those things. But at least they know
Okay.
the
And
range. So you're not
what is your best question you have ever heard from the free consultation from the client side?
during the consultation.
Yes.
That is a good question. In a consultation, right now we're just talking about acquiring the consultation. We'll have to do a whole nother workshop on doing a consultation, um, because, there's so many different questions from so many different directions, and not any of the ones that we get are going to be relevant to anybody else on the call. So, yeah, Jean's are going to be entirely different. Dan's are going to be entirely different. Anna Marie's are going to be entirely different. So, for now, I would just say if you can get them to sign up for a consultation, you have done an excellent job with your prospecting. And if you're getting your calendar full of consultations, that is exactly what we're after. And, I know one of the key metrics that we've kept, and I've not kept up with it, but with presenting that in our meetings, is how many sales consultations did you do last month? And I can correlate if I do 8 consultations in a month, I will get 2 new clients 8 months later. So, that's a thing that I can track. If I keep enough data on my spreadsheet, I can do that. But then I know exactly what I need
So,
to do.
sorry to interrupt you. What the impression I'm getting here that from your perspective, our initial, you can say, motive should be to get a free consultation offer from, you can say, the person who we are going to sell, not
Yeah,
on the problem they are facing or they having in their industry or the organization. Am I right?
correct. We don't need to sell the whole chain, just the first link, right? So our first offer is not buy my product, and it's not how much is it going to cost and can I solve your problem or any of those things. We haven't got there yet. The whole purpose of prospecting, and the most common failure of prospecting is asking for too much or deciding too much too soon. So the first thing we want to do is make a friend. The second thing we want to do is make an offer of some kind, and often that is a consultation. With me so far?
Gotcha.
Okay,
Yes.
fantastic. All right, so we just have a few minutes left. I want to make sure that we are making the best use of everybody's time. So the next steps after prospecting and making an approach, right? So first step, let's make a friend. The approach is the offer. Same thing, it's just, we use a little bit different terminology. So if we've done this correctly, we get a yes, no, or a not yet. We make an approach. They say, yes, I would like a consultation, or a cup of coffee, or a report, or whatever. If we've done that and we get a yes, no, or a not yet, we've done our job, right? For prospecting. The next stage is the holding pattern. And a holding pattern is a whole nother workshop. So, and we'll be doing that next month, right?
But very, very, very important.
Yes. And sales, I mean, this is probably the key to the aviation industry because we have a longer sales cycle than any other industry except maybe commercial real estate. I think they have a slightly longer pattern than we do. And Dan and Jean, you probably have a better idea than I do currently about what that is for buying and selling aircraft. But yeah, the holding pattern is super important. And then sales is a whole nother conversation. And that is the one that you wanted to have, Ali, today. We don't want to jump into that too soon. We want to make sure that we have made a good approach. We've established a good relationship. We're moving forward in the right way. If they want to buy our product, they can jump straight to that. But that almost never happens in our industry. There's way too much information that needs to be exchanged and so on before somebody makes a decision to buy our services.
Sorry, I asked this question because I never done a sales consultation for aviation client. So in the other services, they directly come onto the, you can say, problem and the solution. They don't
Correct.
follow whole their structure. But right now, I getting your point, and this is more easy and more relevant what we are talking to. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Thank you. All right. And I think that's the thing is it takes the pressure off of you as the salesperson and it takes the pressure off of the other person. Because they don't feel like, I have to make a sale in this phone call. That's never going to happen. So, if you go in with the goal of, I'm just going to find out as much as I can about this person, and I'm just going to make a friend, and I'm going to see if I can help them, even if there's anything that I can do, or anybody that I can introduce them to, or refer them to, or any question I can help them with about this. All of that is fun. So that is cool. All right. Questions, comments, thoughts? Did you learn anything that you didn't know before?
I learned a lot. I learned so many things today because I've been working on this sales cycle, and this is really a great way to improve my, you can say, process as well,
Mhm.
and to target the right clients and for the future, all the holding patterns as well. So I learned a lot because I can see that I was somehow in a different direction, but right now get my pattern that in which direction I have to move forward and where I have to put some initial contact and who is my, you can say, target clients and
Mhm.
how can you can say, make initial offer and so on. So this is very helpful for me and I really appreciate for your workshop today. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
You're very welcome. And yeah, there is a spreadsheet also that you can download if you don't want to use a CRM or if you don't have a CRM or anything else, a spreadsheet will often do because we're just doing 10 at a time, right? So if you take the pressure off the technology, you don't have to have a multiple $1,000 CRM to make this work. We're not looking for huge numbers, and we can keep track of 10 people at a time. Once we start into the holding pattern, then we're going to want to have 100 at least. And we'll talk about that next time we talk.
And the other important part, Mohammed brought up the part about this being initial training. You got to
Uh-huh.
do recurrent training. I've been doing this a long, long time, and I
Yeah.
still pick up things that over the years I have stopped doing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's things like this are always good because it doesn't bring something new to you, it brings back something to you.
Right, exactly. In fact, John, if you want to throw out that GPT prompt sheet, that's something new that we did this year that we used in the episode that we talked about. That is something new that we've learned over the last year about prospecting. And Jean, I know you could teach this 1,000 times better than I could. You've been doing this a long time and you have a lot of knowledge in the industry that is really, really helpful